Hey, good morning. This is Susan Sparks. I'm glad to be with you here and talk about today how to be a media darling. Today there's more opportunity than ever to get yourself out there as a subject matter expert. And I'm going to challenge your thinking a little bit because a lot of times we kind of just think about this presence as social media only, and we forget that there's a whole nother great bunch of options out there in mainstream media, whether it's TV, radio, print publications. All those are still definitely in need of subject matter experts. And I'm going to walk you through what you can do to not only pitch your ideas, but have the kind of material to back that up and make you appear as professional as possible. So once again, my name is Susan Sparks. My company is ASAP Writing Services, and for the past 10 years, I've been writing for entrepreneurs, coaches, and consultants, whether that's their website copy, articles, case studies, email drip campaigns, and I've also ghost written for them. I've done over 24 books for various entrepreneurs in everything from breast augmentation, believe it or not, to sales techniques and in between. So again, it's just another tool to help position you as a subject matter expert. My background is journalism. So for years, I've done all sorts of, I was your basic newspaper reporter all the way to assignment editor and managing editor of some newspapers. I've been a radio news producer and news reporter there as well. Also public affairs for the military. I did that for a while as a contractor. And then one of my other jobs, we moved around a lot. My husband was career military, or my then husband was. I worked for what was called a speakers bureau, and this was pre-internet days. So associations or businesses needed speakers for their annual meetings or their conferences, and so they would call us and say, well, I need someone to speak on time management, or we need a keynote speaker to wrap it up, or a motivational speaker. And so I worked for two different companies. One was National Speakers Bureau, and then later Speakers International. And what we did was compile all their material, the speakers that we represented, and it was everybody from Patricia Fripp and Jeannie Robertson to Zig Ziglar, and at the time, Speakers International, we were the exclusive representative for Og Mandino, who you may know from books like The Greatest Salesman in the World. And so what we did was compile all that information that they already had prepared, in essence, their media kit, and send that out to the meeting planner or the event planner so that they could review who that was and make their selection. So there's a lot of that kind of background that I'm going to be drawing on today as I share this information with you. Okay, so there's so many opportunities beyond just being consistent on social media for you to be out there. And yes, COVID has kind of changed a lot of in-person opportunities, but there are more news programs on mainstream, whether it's local or national, than ever. There's daytime talk TV, both local markets and national markets, radio and print publications. They still need a lot of material. So don't discount those as opportunities to really get out there, because it's free publicity for you. It positions you as an expert and really allows you just another very priceless way to reach ideal clients. So even local organizations, if they've gone to virtual meetings, that's still a great opportunity. And in fact, it kind of increases your opportunities to speak to these larger associations and organizations that may still be having large meetings, breakout sessions, and all that type of thing. They've just moved it virtual, so now you can do it. There's no travel involved and that sort of thing. So it's still a very viable opportunity. So you may be saying, well, I don't really have anything to talk about. And I would say, oh, yes, you do. You know, here locally, we have a hardware store owner who is on the news every week, every Sunday morning. And one time he was talking about toilets. So if he can go on and talk about toilets and fill a segment, then certainly there's something within your skill set that you can talk about that helps draw your business. So he has something every week, whether it's toilets, like I mentioned, pest control, winterize your home, whatever it is. He's got this constant flow of ideas and new topics that make people keep coming back and watching. We also, on another channel, have a local expert. She started out just talking about couponing, and it's turned into, you know, ways to cut expenses every week. And so she's a consistent guest as well. So that's a possibility for you too. And I'll get more into how to pitch that as an idea as we go. But really, the number one purpose of a media kit is to make that event planner or editor or reporter's job as easy as possible. I can't tell you how many times we, as the editor of a newspaper, especially when I was assignment editor and I had other reporters under me that I needed to kind of plug into different stories, we'd have a weekly meeting or a daily meeting depending on which publication I was at, and we had to have ideas. And so when something came in the mail or somebody called in and said, hey, I can talk about this or that, it was great. I mean, it's like somebody doing your job for you, right? So it's great, great material. Don't ever feel like, oh, I'm bugging them or they don't want to hear from me. They're hungry for ideas. And it's all in the way that you present that pitch as to whether it really turns into something or not. But there's nothing worse than having somebody say, yes, I want to know all about that. Send me your material. And then you don't have anything. And then you're going to lose some precious time and maybe a precious opportunity because you weren't prepared and you didn't have something to get in their hands right away. So I'm going to walk you through some of the basic components of a media kit. First is your pitch letter, which we'll go into some detail on how to really craft a strong one for that. A biography about you, kind of a boilerplate that they can use, whether they're promoting you or put it at the end of your story or whatever. What your speaking topics are, that can be its own set of paper too. Suggested interview questions, and then your top tips if you don't have a lot of testimonials as well. And then if you're an author, you can have a book synopsis or a book bio, and then you can also include a press release. So we'll go through each one of those components. And probably the strongest and most important one is your cover letter or your pitch letter. All right, so you want to introduce yourself, but really to make it strong, instead of saying, hey, I'm Jill and I can speak on parenting, well, that's kind of helpful to the programmer or the program director, but it doesn't really give them much more to go on. And remember, we're trying to keep their job, make it as easy as possible. So Jill, the parenting coach, could still send her pitch letter, but say, kids are now having to go back to school in person. I can talk about how I can give parents 3 tips to reintroduce the bedtime routine so everybody leaves the house on time in the morning. Much more specific, much more narrow, and it's like, hey, that's a great idea. Or, I can help homeschooling, if they're online learning at home, how do you juggle 3 kids trying to be online at the same time? So give them really concrete story ideas instead of something so broad like I'm a parenting coach. Or for instance, if you're a money coach, how do you help your college student who's getting ready to go, what are 3 ways they can be organized so if they lose their bank card, you don't freak out, kind of thing. Come up with specific story ideas. Be generous with those ideas. And then, of course, too, if they come back and say, well, we already kind of did a segment on bedtime routines, we were thinking we wanted something else on, what do you do if your kid can't play organized sports right now? So be very flexible. Don't say, well, I only talk about these subjects and that's it. Think of how you can still turn that into a topic that you can speak to as an expert, and that will really help position you as a credible guest on there. Again, think in advance. For a lot of print publications, it goes way out. Some are even a year ahead. So, here we are in August. If you talk about holiday stress for Christmas and New Year's, you need to be getting that idea out to print publications now, because they've got an editorial calendar already built out, especially if it's something like a magazine or that type of publication where they're printing 2 or 3 months ahead. You might even be a little too late for Christmas. And you can find out what a lot of their editorial calendars are in that initial conversation when you do kind of pitch to a publication like that. They are often very generous with you, saying, well, here's when we do stories on Halloween. It might be January. So it's important to know that. So plan ahead, think about what seasonal opportunities there are, not next week. That's kind of for your social media, but for a mainstream media, something bigger down the road, think months ahead. All right, so that's your pitch letter, is really just a general introduction on you, the topics you can speak about, drawing something else like you're local to the area or whatever that might be that you would do, you will add in that the cover letter. Then you need a biography. And so biographies in general, people struggle with because we kind of think they need to sound like a resume, and that's not necessarily so. If you kind of visualize or just imagine what it would sound like if they're reading your introduction, again, that's third person. It's not, I've been a realtor for 25 years. Okay, so think about how you can tweak that and write it in third person. Lead with something very interesting. So if you are that parenting coach, maybe you had 12 kids, right? Or you fostered 25 kids or something like that. You can lead off with that interesting fact that drawing on your years of fostering 25 children, you've become this parenting coach helping other parents get through busy mornings or whatever that may be. Really spice it up so that the intro is just as exciting as what your content's going to be. And again, you've made the editor or the program director's job very easy because now they're not trying to sit back and figure out how to introduce you. So that is your biography. Don't make it a resume. Don't make it, I, but make it a third person, exciting kind of introduction that still, you can go deeper because a lot of times that, let's go back to print as opposed to being on a short segment on TV or radio. The more you put in there, then that's something that the reporter can draw from. They may get some interesting tidbits and facts about your background or your skill set that will make for great writing and great information to include in that. So that's your biography. Now, a boilerplate is just a 1 or 2 sentence, real brief description, introduces you again, what your subject matter expertise is, and maybe, you're the owner of your coaching business or, your hardware store or whatever that might be, and where someone can find you. So that's just a very short thing. Again, write it for them. A busy reporter that's not real familiar with your business may just make it sound pretty bland. So this is still your opportunity to be in control of that media opportunity. Also, send them a professional headshot. That's something important to have too, especially if they do a promo and they haven't filmed anything yet, or they need it for a print publication. There may not be sending a photographer out to get your photo anymore, so it's important to have that. And again, most of you have something that reflects you as a genuine person. So if my example is, you see Tim Ferriss's headshot and he's in a t-shirt and jeans, well, he's the author of the 4-Hour Work Week, but you wouldn't see Zig Ziglar, for instance, in a t-shirt as his professional headshot. He's in a suit and tie. So make sure that aligns with what your brand is. All right, so far we've got your cover letter, your pitch letter, the boilerplate, your biography, and your professional headshot. So now we're going to get into what you can talk about. So in that pitch letter, again, you're leading with something that's kind of a hot topic type of thing, But speaking topics can be its own sheet, and this is helpful more for meeting planners and events and that sort of thing, but it's still something that you can send on to mainstream media as well. And this gives you an opportunity to go a little deeper on what you'd cover in those topics. So a good rule of thumb is maybe have 3 different topics that you can speak on. And within those topics, you want to have some bullet points as to what the outcome of that would be, or what the listener would take away from that. This is especially helpful too if you're doing any kind of educational speaking to groups, or sororities or fraternities. College campuses have a lot of programs where they bring in speakers and that sort of thing. High schools, you need to specify that learning outcome a lot of times so that they can justify that we're not just going to have a speaker talk to us for 20 minutes. There are some concrete takeaways that they will cover that the audience will get. So this is a great way to just expand on what those topics are. And again, all you were trying to do is get our foot in the door, get that first opportunity or two to be their subject matter expert. You don't want to overload them with, I've got a year's worth of topics for you. That's later on, that's kind of down the road. They want to try you out, make sure that you're a good fit just as much as you want to try them out. So 3 topics, a little more in depth with those bullet points is plenty. Now, here's where it becomes very important that you have the ability to control the interview, whether it's on air or in print, and that is by giving them some suggested interview questions. So a lot of times on TV, the reporter has just read this story and now they've turned around and here's this next person. They've got a sheet of paper in front of them. They read your introduction or they read it off the monitor. And you don't want this to turn into, so tell us about your business, right? Because now all the energy is gone. You've kind of lost control and you're going to have to make up ground. So having suggested interview questions does a couple things for you. It keeps you in control of the content. It gives the reporter something solid to start with. You may still get off topic a little bit, or they may come up with their own questions, but you've done them a great favor by giving them the initial bit of information. And then if things kind of seem out of control or whatever, they've got a couple other follow-up questions there. So again, this helps keep both you and the reporter on topic. It helps them keep the interview going. You sound much more professional. And then you also don't get caught off guard by some random question that was just kind of thrown out there on top of their head. Granted, that may still happen, but this kind of decreases your chances that, somebody puts their foot in their mouth. So maybe 8 to 10 questions is all you need. But another important part of this too is make sure that last question is, where can people find you, or where can they find out more about you? Because this is your opportunity then to lead them away from this, have them visit your website or whatever it is that you might be, what your call to action is. So make sure that that is one of those suggested interview questions. Again, this is something that the program director or the editor is going to love. It's like, oh my gosh, here's my questions already. The story's almost already written for me. So be generous with all those ideas. It really does help make them go a lot smoother. And then testimonials are always good, but sometimes people are like, well, I don't have any testimonials. I haven't been on any other program or anything. So this is a great way for you to replace that with some of your top takeaways. So for instance, if you wrote a book, you might have 5 or 6 of your best ideas from that book, or just a quote from it. Again, this gives reporters something to hang on to. They can explore that topic with, and it also kind of plants a seed that, well, here's some other things they can talk about later on when we have them back. And then finally, too, what you can send is links to other programs that you've been on, so they get a little feel for your personality or how you come across on air. So that's a great way to do it. So you can send that electronically, which I would suggest that you do. That way the links are active and such. But I would also say send a hard copy. You know, all of us, our inboxes get so full that you could have popped up one day and I think, well, that's a great idea. And then they lose your email or it gets buried in a bunch of others. And now you've lost your opportunity. So take the time, print it out, you know, do each of these components of the media kit so that they've got hard copies, something tactile. They can put it in their file drawer so that if you are 2 or 3 months ahead of time, they can still come back and pull it out and find it then. A couple other things too. The book biography, again, if you're an author and you're promoting a book, again, you're not on there to sell. You're on there to share your expertise, to create that attraction factor so that people end up finding your book or looking for you to do their coaching or whatever it may be. So the book biography is really just about the book and why you wrote the book and what readers can get from it, what the outcome of that is. So that's, if you've done that, that's a great thing to do too. Again, learning outcomes, if you have students that you're speaking to as your main group, that's an important factor as well. So I've kind of gone through all these quickly. If by chance you're watching the replay, make sure you comment #replay. And I want to just kind of go back over a couple of the components of the media kit. So another important way that you can get on broadcasts or in publications is tying it into a current event. So you can create a press release, say for instance, if new unemployment numbers come out and you are an employment coach or helping people find jobs, you can use that as your lead. That makes it timely. It helps them tie it into a headline. Maybe it's the amount of student debt or student loan debt that's out there and you're a money expert. Again, you can use that as that shocking attention headline, attention-getting headline that really kind of speaks to the mindset of a reporter or a news programmer. That's like, oh, here's a current event. Here's somebody that can talk about that, fill us in on the topic, and so it's a win for both of you. If you have a new product or if you've released a new book or maybe you're holding an event, maybe you're changing that event from an in-person event to an online event and suddenly your audience can be bigger. All these kind of things can go in a press release to them. Company milestones, maybe it's your 10th year in business or your 500th customer, or depending on what your market is and where you're at, those are great ways to get on there. And again, remember, you're not bugging the editor, you're not bugging the program manager, you are giving them great ideas to come up with a story, and now you are their subject matter expert. So mainly, I want you to be prepared. Don't get caught, not ready. If you've had a great conversation, maybe you meet someone on an online virtual event, you're messaging back and forth, and they're like, hey, we want to have you speak, or we want to have you, we want to interview you, send us your information. The last thing you want to do is be scrambling at the last minute and try to get that together. Now, how do you find these opportunities? Well, there's some great resources out there. And in fact, I have a link in my description. You can go to, it's a bit.ly link, which is Media Tips Sheet. And that has a lot of contact information for everything from national news, where you can find information on who your local news contacts are, event planners, associations, and that sort of thing. You can access their calendar to see what events are. And yes, like I said, some things are not in person. There's been a lot of change and such, but the beauty of the internet is you can find that information up to date pretty quick. So make sure you get that sheet that gives you all those opportunities. There's sites where you can be guests on radio shows. You can HARO, Help a Reporter Out, is a great thing to subscribe to, because they're always, somebody's throwing out an idea, hey, I need to speak to an expert on taxes or whatever that may be. You can get quite a bit of opportunity just being on that email stream and learning about what's out there. So it seems like a whole lot of things to put together, but I've done media kits for my clients, and it really is just an incredibly effective way to help market yourself above and beyond what we kind of get stuck in this social media rut, and there's a lot to do and that sort of thing. So really think outside your social media bubble and consider how you can be, even if it's just your local cable channel, that still gives you that visibility. Most of the time you end up with a clip that you can then turn around and share to even wider audience. And then share those logos of the different news organizations or publications that you've been featured in. That's another thing that you can put on your website or on your profiles on LinkedIn or that sort of thing, that you've been this subject matter expert. It's really just incredibly priceless information, priceless visibility. And in the matter of speakers, a lot of times, most of those people were being paid professionally. And that's kind of a live for another time, is how can you position yourself to be that speaker and get paid speaking engagements, or how do you structure that? Is certainly something that I could cover for you later on, kind of thing. So I really want to thank you. I'm coming up short on my time. I have 2 invitations. One, again, is grab that media contact sheet that I have listed. I have a link there. And if you really want to learn more about writing for your business, entrepreneur or coach or consultant, I invite you to join my Facebook group. It's a free group, Biz Writing Tips, and the link is also in the description. I'd love to have you join us there and do a lot more in depth on how to write for your business. One of the hardest things for us is to talk about ourselves and what we do. And a lot of times we think we need to be overly creative or clever, and that really doesn't help. So if you're struggling with your message, I'd love to help you out. Like I said, I write content. I could create your media kit. We could do your website, copy, articles, case studies, email drip campaigns, and help you really get much more visible as a subject matter expert. And then that just helps clients flock to you. So thank you very much. I didn't see any questions, but you can certainly message me and I'd be happy to help you out with that. And I will be back next week. Hope to see you then. Thank you for joining me.